get into pyjamas, eat your snacks and binge. I am loving it. I'm like, will this be a 5-star? A bit of magic, a bit of romance is the perfect recipe for autumn, so I can't wait. Oh, that is still hot. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Deb if you're new, and if you're not, then welcome back. You may have noticed that we're in a little bit of a different setup today. We are not in the usual space, the lovely office. We are actually in a hotel room today, and I got so many weird looks. Well, me and Toby got so many weird looks carrying like a stack of books into our hotel room. They're probably thinking, what on earth are they doing? But I was not going to miss an upload. I'm trying my best to be consistent, and we are currently in the thick of the renovations. Like when I say in the thick of it, we have no toilet. Well, we have a toilet without a flush, we have no bath, and we just thought, let's escape for a night and, you know, have a nice bath, have a nice toilet, and yeah, make the most of it whilst we can. So I thought, I know what I'll do, I'll bring some books and I'll film a video while it's like not chaotic in the background, because trust me, right now there's nothing serene or calming about our house. It is very chaotic. So I have got a lovely hot chocolate courtesy of Toby, and I rarely drink hot drinks, but it's finally feeling like autumn. I've got like an autumn colour on, it's getting nice and cozy, so I thought, why not finally make the first autumn themed video on my channel. And I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I'm going to be attempting hopefully to read this autumn. So all of these books are kind of what I think of when I think of autumn. They may be a bit rogue to you, but we'll get to them. The first book that I'm hoping to get to this autumn, and when I say autumn, I basically mean from October till about mid-November, because as soon as we hit mid-November, I'm going to be honest, it's Christmas to me. To be fair, right now it's Christmas to me, but I'm trying to, you know, enjoy autumn, but to me, as soon as it's cold, it's Christmas. And unpopular opinion, or actually I think people are split. I think people are either team Christmas or let's at least have Halloween. I've never really been a Halloween person, so I'm like, it's Christmas, I'm ready to get my Christmas tree up, I'm ready to start Christmas shopping, and I am ready to start reading Christmas books. But before we get there, I have to start here, and I'm going to show you what we will be hoping to read this autumn and why it kind of gives me autumnal vibes. So I'll try to like stack the books here. You probably can't see all of them, but we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books that I'm going to attempt. So not bad. I think I can do 7 books in, what are we now? 8th of October? Probably can do that in a month. Yeah, why not?
That's good. It's good. I'm enjoying it. It's like I'm watching it live.
So the first book we have, and this has been on my TBR for quite some time to be fair, so I feel like what better time to get to it than autumn, is 6 of Crows. And this is like a lot of people's favourite fantasy book and favourite book, or a lot of people talk about this author's writing, and I've not read anything by this author yet, so I'm very intrigued. Not to mention it's also a Netflix, I think it's a show, not a film. So I love reading a book and then watching the film or the show and like seeing how close they were to what I imagined in my head. And so yeah, I think this will be a good one to read and then watch. So for those of you who don't know what 6 of Crows is about, I don't really either, to be fair, but all I know is that it's got a heist, it's got something to do with magic and unlikely friendships. So that's really all I know going into this book. But it sounds quite dark, it sounds quite broody and moody, and I thought that kind of gives me autumn vibes. Not to mention just the cover. I think it's the darkness, the cloudiness. Autumn's quite cloudy and wet and rainy. I know it's not got the autumnal what is the word? You know what I mean? Colours per se, but there's just something about this that gives me the vibe of autumn. And it has got red. Red is kind of an autumn colour. So I'm not sure exactly in what order I'm going to read all of these in, but this will definitely be one of the books I'm going to attempt to try and read this autumn. The next book that I'm going to attempt to read is the final book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. So this is such a popular series by Holly Jackson, and I have been obsessed with it. But I kind of feel like I need some breaks between them. I'm not sure why. I feel like, especially after the second one, that second book was quite heavy and dark in comparison to the first book. It's still a YA, don't get me wrong. I'm just a wimp. But I felt like the themes that happened in the second book got a lot more deep, a lot more real, and, you know, things that got covered were emotional. So I was like, I took a break from it. They are relatively long as well, and I love listening to the audiobooks, and I feel like I get through audiobooks slower than reading, even though I love them. So I thought I'd give it a break, but now I'm back, I'm ready. I watched the BBC interpretation of Because Guide to Murder. I really liked the cast, but I felt that the show was a bit young, and I feel like the first book is kind of, you know, YA, but as they get through the books it does feel a little less YA. So I'm not sure if it felt young on purpose, because they will grow, or people watch how they grow and develop in their characters as the series goes on. But I did like the series. But the last book sounds really good. So basically, for those of you who don't know, the basis of the book series is about a girl called Pip who basically solves murders. And in this book, it carries on from the last book where she had solved something. I don't want to give up too much away in case you haven't read the series, but now she's being stalked, and there's a serial killer also in the midst of the town, and the way she's being stalked is kind of similar to the way the serial killer is, I don't know, leaving clues. So she feels like the two are connected, but the police are reluctant to take her seriously, and so she's basically as good as dead. So the killer, or the stalker who's stalking her, is basically saying, when you disappear, who's going to try and find you? Because you try and find other people's when they disappear, or other people's murderers or attackers, but who's going to try and help you? And that sounds like it's going to be so good. I also quite like the romance in this book, so I'm intrigued to see how it develops, or if it develops further in this book. And it's kind of got like a thriller undertone to it, so I thought, you know, thriller, Halloween, scary, murder, there's a time to read it. It's autumn, right? So that is the next book that's on my autumn TBR. The next one is Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. Now, I was tempted to do the whole series, and I might still attempt it. I mean, unlikely, because I do want to read some Christmas books this Christmas, so I don't know if I'll get to all of the books in this series in just autumn, but hopefully at least in the winter season. I guess autumn's and winter's different, but you get what I mean. In like the next coming months, hopefully I'll get to all of the books, because I've heard that they get progressively better, and I kind of, from Akata, I kind of feel like, yeah, I'll read one book and be sucked in, and I couldn't not read the next book when I read Akata, so I feel like that might happen. I'm not sure though. Everyone I've spoken to has said though that the Throne of Glass series is like the best series out of all of the 3 books. I'd love to know what your thoughts are, because I've also heard quite good things about the Crescent City one, so I don't know, I'm intrigued. But I've heard as well that people who start with Akata prefer Throne of Glass, and people who start with Throne of Glass prefer Akata, so I wonder why that is. But basically all I know about this book is that the main character is fighting for her freedom. So she lives in a world where there's no magic, and she hates the king, and he's like on the Throne of Glass, I guess. But even though she hates him, she's gone to see him to request her freedom, and all she has to do is survive a competition where 23 others try and murder her. And I feel like a lot of these fantasy books that I'm reading at the moment have some sort of competition or trial where people are trying to survive being murdered. So I'm intrigued to see if Sarah J Maas can do this without it being like samey. I don't know, like I've not got high hopes for that, but I'm intrigued because of the author. So hopefully the book is good as well. And of course I've heard so many things about the romance and the fantasy in this world, so I am definitely interested, and I guess that's why it's in my autumn TBR, because there is fantasy. There will eventually be magic, although apparently there's no magic in this world, and a land without magic, so I don't know. But it does say, like, as the tagline, enter the realm, unleash the darkness, live the legend. So I feel like all of that is given fantasy, and fantasy And fall or autumn just go hand in hand, don't they? So this is the third book out of the 7 that I'm hoping to get to this autumn. The next one is one I cannot wait to get to, and it's definitely given autumn with the yellow, right? Like fallen leaves, definitely. This book is a magical realism, is that what they call it? Magic realism romance book, and I've heard such good reviews about this book. I bought this book last year, I think, and I still haven't read it somehow. So it's a 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, and all I remember from the premise about this book is that there's a woman whose aunt, I think, has died. Is it her aunt? So it doesn't say anything about an aunt on the blurb, but I'm pretty sure that I've either watched someone else talk about this book and they've mentioned an aunt, or I've read something somewhere, but I'm pretty sure she has an aunt who passes away, because I remember someone saying that the way grief is spoken about in this book is really good. And her aunt passes away and she goes to clear out the apartment or the house where her aunt lived, and she finds out that the place her aunt lived is magical because it can go 7 years into the past, I think, or is it into the future? But either way, yeah, into the past. There's like some either way, there's like some time travel element into this book. And when she does go into the past 7 years ago, she meets a man, and there's some sort of romance that happens with this man. And I guess when she's in the present day, he's not there perhaps, and when she goes to the past, he is. I'm intrigued. I'm not really sure how they're going to do this or how this is going to work. But yeah, basically he lives in the past 7 years ago, to be exact, says the blurb. So I feel like a bit of magic, a bit of romance is the perfect recipe for autumn. So I can't wait. I feel like this might be the first one that I pick up because it's been so high on my radar. And I feel like a bit of the magic and romance is the perfect recipe for autumn. A little hot chocolate break before it gets cold. Okay, so next we have The Only One by Riley Sager. Now, if you watched my video about reasons you should get a Kindle, one of them was that you can make the font bigger in the book you're reading. And one thing that put me off reading this was when I opened it, I was like, why is the text so small? And I still feel that way. I feel like I am valid in thinking that it could be bigger. I just do. But anyway, this is a highly anticipated read for me because I have been meaning to read some Riley Sager. All I ever hear about from other people who love thrillers is how good Riley Sager is at writing thrillers, and I'm a thriller newbie of sort. I do enjoy a thriller, but I've played it quite safe. I've read all like the popular ones, you know, the Freida McFadden books, the Alex Michaelides, you know, the Silent Patient book, and even one by Holly Jackson, which, you know, is a YA thriller. So I've played it relatively safe, so I'm kind of intrigued to actually read a popular thriller writer. And this one sounded really good, and again, it made me think of autumn because of Halloween, and this sounds like a spooky, scary story that you'd watch or read about in the spooky season. So this book is about a woman whose whole family got massacred. They all were murdered, and she's the only one who survived. But although she survived, she is paralyzed. I think she can't speak as well. Yeah, she's paralyzed, confined to a wheelchair, and she's never been able to tell her side of the story until now. I think her new caretaker or someone who takes care of her, called Kit, gives her a typewriter, and she begins to slowly type, I want to tell my side, or I want to tell you everything. And so I guess it's going to be creepy, scary to find out what happened that day that her whole family got massacred. And just the front cover is giving haunted house. Is it not giving haunted house scary vibes? I'm a little bit scared to read this, but I think nearer to Halloween will be like my prime time to read this book because it's just given such creepy and scary vibes. Next, we have The Serpent and the Wings of Night, and I am currently 60% through this book, and oh my gosh, I am loving it. I'm like, will this be a 5-star? It has so much great stuff in it so far that I'm like, this has the concoction or like the ingredients of a 5-star book, but I guess like the last 40% could change that. I'm hoping it will be. It's going in that direction, but I don't know. But this is probably up there with one of my favourite so far vampire reads, and I'm actually going to do a separate video to do with vampires later because I love a vampire book. And so when I read the blurb and synopsis of this book and it had vampires, I was like, yep, that's for me. And vampire books can be quite samey, right? They can be, you know, we've all read Twilight probably. So I didn't know what to expect, but I have been pleasantly surprised. And I loved Twilight, don't get me wrong, but of course reading Twilight when you're 16 to reading it when you're 30 is a little bit different. So I was hoping this would be good, and so far I have been really enjoying it. It's about a human girl who lives in a vampire world, and she enters a trial. They all enter in trials in these fantasy books, but she basically enters a trial to be granted a wish by a god that will make her less of a what would the word be? Temptation. She doesn't want to be weak or breakable like humans are, because she's not grown up with humans. She's grown up being raised by a vampire king, might I add, and you know, she's ruthless. She just wants to win, and she's like willing to kill anyone and anything to win, until of course she meets a vampire that changes everything. And the way the romance is happening so far in this book is so good. I love it. I love how slow paced it's been, but those little pockets of like romance just feel so, I love it. I won't talk about it too much today. I'll leave it for a separate video, but already into this book and I am enjoying it a lot. And I guess there's something about the autumn that makes me think of vampires. I guess I watched Twilight maybe in the autumn, I don't know what it is, but it makes me think of vampires, so that is why I put this on the list. And we actually only have one more book left, and I think it is kind of a rogue choice for an autumn read, but it is The Long Way Home by Amelia Parks. I'm just realising that this is the wrong book. This is the wrong book. I meant to pick up Daisy Hates, because that's the second book in the Magnolia Parks, it's not even a trilogy, but in the series, right? I don't know why I thought this was the next book, but yes, so ignore the cover and pretend this is Daisy Hates, and I have put that on my full TBR because I really wanted, now it's not a cozy read, but I really wanted a book where you could just get into pajamas, eat your snacks and binge. Like, you know, when it's cold outside and you get into really cozy pajamas, you put on like a feel-good show or something that's going to make you laugh, or like dramatic that you can just kind of switch off to and just binge. I feel like the whole Magnolia Parks universe has that kind of vibe. Like, you get so lost in the characters' dramas and relationships that you can just binge them, and it kind of gives like a, I don't know if cozy is the right word, but I think those of you who've read it might get it. Just a nice book to read like in one sitting, probably not quite thick, but a binge-worthy book is what I'm trying to get at. And whilst this is the wrong one, I am very intrigued by Daisy Hates, and I'm pretty sure it's quite a few like gang-related themes in that book because of her brothers. So I guess that kind of can give some autumn vibes with like the violence. Like, I just think autumn's a violent month apparently. It's because of Halloween. It's also cozy. And I feel like I've got a good mix of cozy / thrillers and scary and spooky / fantasy to keep me occupied this autumn. So those are all of the books that I'm hoping to read this autumn. We'll see how it goes, but I feel like they'll give definitely autumn vibes. I'd love to know what's on your autumn TBR, and if you've read any of these books, especially the Throne of Glass series, because I've got such high hopes about how good it will be. Let me know, should I damper it down a little bit, or will it live up to my high hopes? Because I just don't know. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you're having a lovely autumn so far yourselves, with all of the cozy hot chocolates or hot drinks and nice warm jumpers. And yeah, I will see you in my next video. Bye everyone.